Oh, I really look forward to your comments from what I've got. So I'll start. I'm going to share the screen. Now, there are two sets of videos in here, as long as it's all still working. I'll check on the way in. The first one is very loud. I'll turn the sound down as quickly as I can, but that's just warning you. And then the second one is probably a bit soft, so I'll turn it up. But you might just, and they're only quite short clips. And Brandon just wanted me to remind everyone that I asked for this session to be recorded. And I'll say, and he can keep this in the record, I do that because before I start, I never know exactly what it is I'm going to say. I have a running sheet of ideas on my left hand, and a PowerPoint and all of that. But I'm really going to be looking forward to be guided by you in terms of questions. So just keep your mics on and shoot questions anytime you like, because I'm hoping that it generates lots of thoughts for you. So I'll get the right. So that's on, that's on, that's on, and that's on. So you should see my screen in PowerPoint. That's okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So I called the session Assessing Learning Using Visual Metaphors. The context of most of what you're going to see and what I'm talking about is an undergraduate introduction to management course that I taught online for a group of 27 students who were all in Finland. However, they were not all Finnish. There were Russian, Polish, Italian, English, and French students in the 27. So they do have international students. It's a program that has been going for 32 years now, and it's taught in block mode. So every 3 weeks, the students begin at one new subject, and they do a subject intensively for 3 weeks and then move on. And I've written about that elsewhere. So that's the context. I have been teaching it face-to-face for the last 4 years. This was the first online one. I have a number of assessment tasks, a lot of them built around reflection and analysis, but this particular one has two parts. And the first part, they have to do an individual task of creating a visual metaphor of their personal understanding of some of their key management principles. I make it very loose and gestural. It has to be visual. I call it a three-dimensional object, but not all of them turn out to be three-dimensional in terms of presentation. Of course, this year they couldn't anyway. But in past years, we've usually had an art gallery exhibition on the last day of class in the room. So this year I added a whole of class assessment task, which meant they had to work out how to display all their artworks in a virtual art gallery. And that's the hot link. We'll go there later. The team task was entirely student driven. And if we have time, I can show you how I set up the task for them, because I tried to model what I wanted from them in setting up the assignment. It wasn't just a nice written single page. So with you, what I want to do is explore the approach, look at some student responses, and what that might tell you about their responses to course content. Hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit of a rationale for the approach, but I'll really welcome challenges and what ifs and whens. So that's the background. Now this is the first of the videos. Hopefully it comes up. So you might need to I'll turn the sound down a bit and then we'll go. This is only about 2 minutes. And this was a recent submission from Finland. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so let me stop the sharing for a minute. What came to mind when you were watching that? Carol?
I would say the word that came to mind was creativity. I was pretty amazed at how lifelike of a trailer it was.
He wasn't a video study student or anything. And as far as I can tell, he just did it using PowerPoint and that function where it slides over and puts it. So lots of ways, yeah. But so the creativity, it's part of what came out of the process, and it's also part of how it all began. Any other comments from anyone? I'll go back in. Whoops, share. So this is where it began. In 1996, I was doing my first classroom as organization approach to teaching. And I'll try and not talk about that, but too much. In essence, it gives all the authority to the students. It considers the classroom as an organization and says, okay, we're all the members of the organization, let's manage this class. And as he says in the video, he learned stuff, but he also taught stuff. And this aspect of the assessment came about because in that first year, I asked the students to do a map of their workplace in relation to what they'd learned. And one of the students wasn't working. She was at home with a very young child. And she brought in, and this is a drawing of it, she brought in a bird's nest her son had found. She'd put in it some little Easter egg chickens and some Easter eggs, and pasted to the wall that the nest was sitting on were the words you can see in the center of the screen. And she said, and that's what you did to us. We're afraid we'll fall, but you pushed us and we flew. And I was blown away by just by the whole concept. I hadn't really understood how much I was pushing them. I hadn't really understood how afraid they were. She encapsulated so much in those few words and that image that the following year I used that as a basis and invented what I call a three-dimensional representation of their learning. So this next one is a very recent one developed by a Vietnamese student in Finland, studying in Finland. And the text on either side, I'll give you a minute to read it. The text on either side is part of what goes with it, because now they not only do the image, but they also have to do a written statement about how the image connects to their learning. And the statement's usually 250 to 500 words long. I feel like I'm in class and I can't see you. Has everybody read it? Would you like a minute to continue reading it? So some comments. I'd really love to hear what you've got to say about this. How would you feel about it if you received that as an accessible item in a class on introduction to management?
So can I ask,
Please.
do you require, because what I see on the left-hand side is like my 2 key learnings, the students' 2 key learnings.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I see on the right-hand side is sort of my understanding of management, not necessarily an individual concept, but as management in the larger context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly it. But what I require of them is, and I can find it in the computer, but I didn't put it in the pack, I thought, is that it is a strange and difficult assignment, that they won't understand it probably for the first week and a half. Please ask me anytime you like. But what I want you to do is to think of, create or invent something that helps other people understand what you are thinking about management. So in this one, this Vietnamese student actually asked if he could submit this because he wasn't sure it was 3D. So we negotiated and I agreed, well, the real image is 3D. So yes, that's fine. But I didn't see the text that he gave to it until he submitted it on the day it was due. They do have to do what he did, and put referencing in. So, you know, he found this lovely quote from Margaret Wheatley, which was not in any of the work I provided them. So that is something that he found somewhere else and that he made the connection to. So, but generally, yes, they should try and see something, name some things that they've specifically learned, and then explore it in a bit more detail. As I said, 250 to 500 words. The issue for me is that, as you saw with the first video, it pushes their creativity. In all the years I've been teaching this, I've only ever had one student be so angry that he put in an item that I could have had him reported for. It was rude. It was a little USB organized fan with the sun pasted on it, and basically his message was, this was teaching me to blow sunshine out of my ass. But even then, I felt that he achieved the objective, not that he passed the subject, but he achieved the objective of creating an image that, you know, told us what he thought he'd learned, which was he felt nothing at all. But so it's kind of something you can't fail. Once you've got a concept and you look for an image, then the image is going to help you explain the concept. But he's the only one in 25-6 years who's just sort of basically, you know, argued with the whole concept and decided that he was really going to diss it completely. Everyone else, including in Australia, a lot of TAFE teachers. So for those of you not in Australia, our college teachers, crafts and arts and carpenters, plumbers and so on, were doing the course that I was teaching this in. So I often had the most beautiful handcrafted items brought in, including the next one, which I will learn not to hit that out there. So this one was built by a metal worker. So what I wanted to ask was, as a viewer of this sculpture, what do you think the creator was aiming to convey to observers? What was he thinking about and seeing? And I'll give you one tip. XB, which is the base, was the abbreviated name for the class, and it stood for experience-based learning. So XB was kind of the shorthand name. So experience-based learning, and then what? What sort of things do you see?
Well, it's spiraling down. He's got his topics of understanding, reflect, doing. I think it's reflect and something else. And act. Spiraling down into the course. So hopefully he sort of, and we're assuming it's a he, right?
Yeah, it was. He was a metalwork teacher. Yes.
I have a friend's daughter doing metalwork right now. So
remember, this was 25 years ago.
Oh, okay. Highly unlikely that. 25 years ago, that would have been, yeah, that's amazing. That's really good, especially for a guy who's sort of probably in a very blokey world, and actually showing that his learning is, I wonder if it's spiraling up or spiraling down.
And there was part of what he wrote about, was the issue of, you know, did my learning start small and get bigger, or did it move down into understanding the broader picture at the bottom? His perception, like his key issue, was, as it's there, the action learning spiral. One of the things we did that semester was talk about action learning, not as a cycle, but as a spiral that sort of begins and then moves up, but can also help, you can go backwards. So so the spiral was a very core part. And yes, you've picked it. Was it going up or was it going down? He discussed that on the day. And the terms was understanding, responsibility, doing, and understanding, observing, doing, and management theory. So they worked in 4 groups. So the white ones, you can only see 2, were the departments, like the groups that they worked in. And then the red ones on the inside were it's reflect, 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 reflect. It's sort of repeatedly reflecting. And so what he saw was the importance of thinking about what he was thinking about. So yeah, that's pretty much what that one was. And the next one then is back closer to the modern day. This is a group from Finland. And what I love, what absolutely blew me away with this class was it's not really clear because I needed to get the whole picture, but they each had their own small items. They built them, they took them in. The one down here, the blue one with the spiral, that was a little notebook that told the story of the journey. Over here is a wonderful little pop-up model. But as they each talked, I normally did an art gallery arrangement and put images around the room, and they all stood beside them and then went and visited each other. But this group said to me when we went to start, no, we want to sit at the boardroom and we want you to call us in roll order. That is the order in which their names were on the roll. And then they each put their image out and talked about it. And I initially didn't notice because they started with the white pages, but they'd put the white piece of paper down, then their image on it, and then build. And about halfway through, I was beginning to see the yin yang image. But it was an absolutely silent message. They said nothing about the underlying structure of it until they got to the 20th piece, which is this one over here. And they said, here you are, here's one for you. And all I could find to write with was a blue pen. I thought, oh, I'll just join up the circle. What I saw happening with this group was not only were they able to think of and create their own image, but to work at an even higher level of abstraction and collaboration and create it as an entire image. Now, if that's the first time any group had ever done that. And I can't explain whether that was because they were a particularly highly evolved class or, just that it all seemed to fall in place for them, because you can see down here on the right where I've got the cursor, one of the students, and again, it was a Vietnamese student because the class is often a large number of Finns, a large number of Vietnamese, and then other students from Europe. And this one here had thought of the yin yang as their image. And so that's what she talked about, bringing it in. And I think they seized on it. So because she proposed it as her image, they then got to see how they could do it as a whole image. And I had never done any 3Ds. It's something I always ask them to do, but I hadn't done it myself. As a result of doing this, I now routinely deliver a 3D that is always based in the class that I'm working on. So this for me was a highlight of this approach, because for me, well, I don't know, let me ask you, what are you seeing in that image? What comes to mind here? June, what about you?
I think it reminds me of balance, the idea of balance and tension, and its parallels to management theories. I'm trying to understand the place A4 sheet on the table under their own image. Okay, so it's kind of integrating all the ideas. It's very integrative. Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was the first class that had ever decided that there was a way for integrating all of their concepts into then one single image.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any other comments? Carol?
Yeah, I don't know. Did they, when I look at that, I say they learned together, so they created an image together.
Yes, yes,
And-
very much.
And in a class of 19 or 20 students, you balance personalities, you balance knowledge, you balance learning styles. I love yin and yang.
Yeah. Well, bear in mind, in this class, this was a particularly international student group. So there were, I think, 9 Finnish students, 5 Vietnamese students, and then 1 each from 5 different European countries. So I think we worked out there were about 8 languages in the room. And we're all working in English. I only speak English, so we're all working in English. So yes, that issue of being able to achieve balance in a very tight period of time was something that, yeah, that they were celebrating. Yeah. And any other observations? So jigsaws, the next one is jigsaws are a regular feature in the art gallery. So I did a book of photos from the experience-based learning, and I'll just give you the concept. So all of these were different forms of jigsaws. So one of the questions I'm often asked is, how can you be sure the students do original images? And what happens if you get lots of different images? And my answer is I've never had anyone duplicate it. So I've never had problems of plagiarism, because if they're going to do a jigsaw, it has to be their own. They can't bring somebody else's in. They can borrow the idea, but it still has to be their own thinking. So on this one here, when you put it all together, that's what it looks like. But when he first set it up on the table, it looked like this picture here where my finger is. And then he invited people to put it together. No, that's a different one. That's the same concept, different, yeah. So these 2 guys each brought in jigsaws in different years. They each put them out on the table like that. And then you had to work out how each one fitted together. And for both of them, very much part of the process was saying it's about working out how to put knowledge together that the subject was particularly helping with. So looking at the words on this image, what kinds of messages was he highlighting and making connections among?
Is it on the concept of leadership?
Well, the subject was called experience-based learning, and it was about organizational behavior when they were doing this.
Okay.
So, but that obviously includes leadership and management, and all of these things. So yes, if you wanted to, you would say yes, he was very much addressing these are the skills that a leader would need. Any other comments? Okay. This one was a woman. Now, I've got it here as a slide, but in the original, it's on a poster board that was 1 meter high by, I don't know, 2/3 of a meter wide. So it's a huge, big poster. And I've always liked this one, particularly because of the motto at the top. You're on the road to success when you realize that mistakes are merely detours. And every part of the images she's got here relates to things that happened in class. They on one occasion they had a big conversation about climbing mountains and trying to get to leadership. What kinds of things would stop them? Being a learner and not quite sure which side of the road to drive on. So it was full of metaphors, and it's beautifully made. You can see the photo's not the best, but you can see the clouds are all cotton wool, The roads were all felted on, and the green is all pieces of felt laid out. She spent hours making it and described the pleasure that she had in doing it. So yeah, I guess part of my questions would be, what are there other images, messages that you see in here? Should I be putting the words in more? I'm sort of just wondering, as I talk to you, I'm always fascinated by the images and the metaphors, but I was just wondering whether for you seeing more of the text would be more helpful. I can't do that this afternoon, but I can certainly add it in later on. What's happening for you?
I think it reminds me of a labyrinth, because
Yes.
you don't really know where you're going. You just
Mhm.
follow along, but you reach your final destination.
Yes, exactly. And a labyrinth or a maze was very much part of what she was offering. And again, the concept of a maze of learning is one that
Right.
came up quite a lot. Yeah.
I think it's
So-
interesting, like
Sorry.
sorry, it was showing the messiness of management, and also
Yes.
like the owner's plate on the bottom left compared to the stop sign further up.
Yes.
Then it's almost like the evil eye and the to me that was sort of like, oh, is that the government versus, you know, the industry on the right? So
I can't answer that question. For her, the eye, I think she had a Greek background, and in Greece and Turkey and places like that, that eye image is not, we call it the evil eye, but for them it's much more of a magic eye, safety and security. You know, the eye that's looking over us and protecting us.
well, I still think, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
that's a metaphor for the government, where they're supposed to give us that
Yep.
that framework and those regulations and the hopefully ethical proposals.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
So Heather, that one of the things about asking students to do this is that by the time they've finished their work and presented it, they have a very clear perception of what they're trying to say. But when we bring it in and it goes into the art gallery, and in the art gallery in person, it's loud and noisy and 100 conversations at once, because what they're seeing for the first time is how each of them has perceived the learning experience so differently. And I've never had, in all the years I've run this as an exercise, I've never had two people bring in the same image in the same year. That same image might, yeah, go on.
Sorry, I do something similar in management problem solving, where I get them to, in a group, basically capture their initial thoughts on what is management problem solving, and they've got to present what I call an infographic.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So, and it's right at the beginning of the course. It has to be done by week 3, and then, you know, in the perfect world, their final assessment is a reflection. So hopefully they've got a mark in time of what they thought management problem was in the beginning to their reflection in that journey.
That's really neat.
And
I guess, yep.
Sorry, it's very similar to what you're talking about, because no two are the same. Even though I talk to exemplars, you know, they know if they copy it, I'm going to know.
Of course.
But they once they get into it first, I mean, like, how easy is it? What is management problem solving? 6 of you brainstorm your ideas and synthesize it. Plus, it's also for them to come together as a group and start working as a group.
Yes.
In a safe space, hopefully. Yeah.
With this one, it's always been an individual one, although I've never, if anybody's asked if they could do with somebody else, I've never said no. So occasionally I've had a pair present the one image, because they've been thinking along the same lines, and if they combine forces, they can improve the quality of what they're doing. but this year, as with all other years, this part of the approach was individual. It's the next part that where I got them to work as a team, because we couldn't do the face-to-face presentation of their work. So this takes us to the second video, and I'll play a short part of it. Their task, and I'll show you I scaffolded the information for the task in a PowerPoint, so I'll show you that a second. Their task was to present at 10 o'clock on the last day of class. So I set a very tight, like a very clear timeline, that they had to have done a virtual art gallery that included all of their work, all of their three-dimensional images. I scaffolded it, I'll show you that, and then I left them completely alone. They could decide in any way they liked how to work, how to do it. And this was the result. That's the opening page. The web link is, oops, oh, yeah, there it is. So because it was virtual, we had to do a virtual welcome.
Yeah, we should start. So you can share your screen, please.
Yeah, can you start the recording,
Yes,
Elyssebeth?
it's
Recording.
just started now, recording now.
Yes. Okay, Ellie, go ahead.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so welcome everyone. We are a few people short, but I think it's okay. Everyone can just explore the website later. So today, Thomas, Rada, and myself, we are going to be your host for the opening of the magnificent Baba Art Gallery. And a few words about the course before Thomas is going to take you to see all the art. The purpose of this course was to practice our skills as managers. We had the freedom to make this art gallery happen in any way we wanted. So we decided to divide ourselves in smaller groups with different kind of tasks. We had 2 groups for designing, 1 group for communication, and 1 for directing. Also, a 5th group was assembled by choosing 1 person from each team to enhance the communication between all groups. And might I say, it worked kind of perfectly. Now, Thomas, would you please take everyone and show the art?
Yes, thank you, Ellie.
Tell you all what we accomplished as managers.
Yes, thank you, Ellie, for your amazing and very interesting introduction.
Oh,
If you look at my screen that I'm sharing, you can see the welcome page. And I know you all are very excited to actually see what we have come up with this amazing group. So let's just dive right into it. We have actually contacted 3 of the artists themselves to explain a little bit about their own artworks. So this is the gallery page, and this is the first artwork. And Jan, would you please tell us a little bit about this artwork?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the idea behind this one was to kind of reflect the thinking that managers have to go through almost like every single day. They have to, because the main thing that managers do is manage people and work with people. So they constantly have to think of the qualities or attributes these employees have and what they can do for the firm, and the tasks they can do, how they work with other people and stuff like that. So this employee card kind of just reflects the thinking behind what managers do. And also in the class, I feel like we've done the same, like with the Belbin profiles and stuff like that. You see what people can do and what they cannot do, and with that you can more easily give tasks to people and formulate the groups and what each person needs to do and work on. So yeah.
Okay, I'll pause there. Any initial comments, or what did you think about how they did the introduction, about what you heard them say?
were we to see the images that they were talking about?
Yeah, I'll skip the rest of the introduction, and as long as I know how to. I just wanted to check that. Right, so I'll go to the gallery now. So that was it. The introduction was, as you can see, a Zoom meeting, and they had planned that and rehearsed it. Now, when they set the gallery up, the building that we would normally be working in has 4 main areas where they would be working: the auditorium, the aquarium, which is the computer center, the cafeteria, and the classroom. And I love the fact that they put the art gallery into their virtual space. So, and what else they did, so we can have a look, is in each room, they've got the pictures, and I can, if I click on any of them, I can take you. So which one would you like to read a bit more about?
I'm just wondering if we're not seeing the right thing, Elyssebeth, because all I can see is the welcome to Baba 20s.
Oh,
nothing else is changing.
Okay, sorry, I'll go back. Thank you for that. I thought it had gone back to, so I'll go back and, yeah, I guess the video cut it out. So, no, wrong one. Thank you. I did stop because you were hearing the introduction, weren't you? I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. What I will now do is go to the PowerPoint and go to the hot link and go direct to the site. Okay. So am I sharing that? No, share it now. So this, okay, so you should now see the welcome to the Barber 20s Art Gallery. Barber stands, they're doing a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, hence Barber. That's the hello and welcome. That's the video. Now we go to the gallery. Okay, now you should see auditorium on the top left and then a series of images.
Much better.
Right? Good, thank you. Okay, okay, so which image would interest people?
The orange man?
Yeah.
The orange, okay. So now what they did was highlight the picture of the artwork, like the graphic work behind this, I thought was astonishing. None of them were computer people. None of them had that as a skill set. So somewhere in the midst of doing all their management learning, they also taught themselves this. So this is a sculpture by Matthias Serra. Lucas Orpoka is Polish. So this was his explanation. So that's his. And when you look now, the other thing is that the work that they presented, as I said, it's 250 to 500 words. They chose for themselves the section of text that they would put on the image. So the next one, Jeremias Katayama. I like this, slowing down to go faster. So next one, tell me when to go on. Can I move? Or would you like to talk about them? I need some feedback here.
I'd say move. I'd
Okay.
like to see more.
Sure, okay. Yeah, I really like this one. I thought she had a it's very, very typical of the campus environment. I was fascinated that it was a girl that did it. And in what she's referencing here is that I use the Honey and Mumford Learning Styles questionnaire format as part of their early work to give them some understanding of personal profiles and things. So in beer cans, that's her personal profile. This is another girl. I liked her final sentence. The defining feature that connects the Sagrada Familia to my learning curve of management is that they're both still under construction, and who knows when they'll be fully finished, if ever. I really liked the idea that she could see into the evolving nature. And that's the one, that's the employee card. This one is built entirely out of cardboard. So it's a very strongly three-dimensional piece. So June, that comment you said about balance was very strong in hers. Planning, organizing, leading and controlling. Now I have to say, I'm not totally wedded to the idea of planning, organizing, leading and controlling as the core factors for management, but it is what the university requires. That's in the syllabus document, so I have to use it. And this one, Nikolai, is from Arkhangelsk in Russia. If you look carefully, you can see the ups and downs. I think he described very beautifully the ups and downs of the course. And this is a beer game. Again, it's one of the young women. And this, I love that you learn to tolerate uncertainty and drawbacks. So now we go to the next room. This one really intrigued me because it's basically just a ping pong ball, but his text is extraordinary. It's more than the 500 words, and he's managed to take a very simple item and find some of the most beautiful metaphorical measures in it between his own knowledge, what he needs to understand about management, and how to just look at a ping pong ball and find the concepts. So now I need to go to.
So Elyssebeth, can I ask?
Yeah.
They
Yes,
did
please.
the caption. They did the caption for their art piece, but then there's another written piece. Is that what I heard you say? Okay.
That's right. To submit their assignment, and again, something that blew my mind when they were doing this was that I said, I set the due dates for everything to be the last day of course, but to do this and get it ready by 10 o'clock on the last day of the course, they then of course had to agree to a much earlier submission date to the art gallery. So they set the submission date to the art gallery as Tuesday morning. Last class was Friday, remembering it's 3 weeks.
Right.
And what I was intrigued by, delighted by, is that all of them had their work in by Tuesday. So they had no trouble meeting a tighter deadline they set for themselves, whereas they sometimes did have trouble meeting deadlines that I set for them around other things. And that deadline was to put in the picture. When I stop sharing, I'll see if I can find one that sort of shows what it looks like. So you can see the variety of the images. This is photographs the girl took of herself and the kinds of experiences. So you can see quite a lot of emotional work in there. It's a really simple piece of amethyst. And this was a rapper style music. This one it's a very particular knife. All Finnish males between the age of 18, I think it is, and 40 have to do between 3 and 12 months compulsory army service. If they don't do army service, they do social community service for the same time. So Finland is very highly militarily trained. And you'll only get this knife, and this is his own, if you do the longest period of training and an extremely tough survival course at the end of your training. And what you know is that if you get through to the end, when you get back to your barracks, this knife with your name on it will be on your bed. It's not handed to you, no big fuss. It's just, it's there on your bed. And his take on it was this. Can you read that? Oops, sorry. I'm not sure if he put more text in there. Maybe he didn't. He called his Excalibur. So I'm watching time, so I guess I'd better. So do you want to see some more images, or are we ready to wrap up? Well, so we've got a couple of things here. I did set up a PowerPoint that told the students what they needed to do. And I made that available to them. And after telling them the assignment, the PowerPoint was the only guide they had. Is that something you'd like to see?
I would.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we go back to here. I'll just have to scoot through because it's at the end of this. Right, so this was the first of my slides. Yeah, so that's the course. I introduced it as a project, so I described the phases that they need to go through. I set it up as a project. I used conventional project management terminology for the most part, but I did not name that. That was sort of a silent part of the work. I sent them off to about, what says 5. I went and explored virtual art galleries and tried to look for ones that were different both in what they were showing and how they showed them. So as you can see, the Canberra Floriade annual flower festival is one, the Sistine Chapel, the art gallery at Musée d'Orsay, an Aboriginal art, and then a Sydney Contemporary Art Gallery. So I just said, go and have a look at these as models. Then I said, you need these individual contributions, team contributions, and the group contributions. So again, I set it up in that tiered structure. And the image I used here is a piece of very famous Marimekko Finnish material. I gave them criteria for success, so I told them exactly what they needed to do. But David Snowden, in his work on the Cynefin domains, would call these enabling constraints. They could do anything they like within these constraints. And I had to sit there and think for quite a while after I'd gone through those art galleries, see what were the success, because some art galleries I looked at were not too successful. But these criteria for success, if they got these right, if I set them up right, then they could do whatever they liked inside the frame. And the images of the place, one of the lakes near where I stay when I'm in Finland. So this is the town the university's in. And then because I felt they might need it, I gave them a list of art gallery sites. But again, it was enabling constraint. I didn't tell them which one to use. And in fact, they didn't use any of the ones I suggested, but I think they got it from this top 10 best website builders. They use the GoDaddy site. And then here were the kinds of decisions they had to make. And again, no, I gave them no directions. I just said, these are the questions you might find yourself needing to work on.
In their responses, did they have to write about these approaches?
Yeah, in another part of their assessment work, I also had them do a reflective learning journal. And in the learning journal, there was a page where they were to write about their experience of doing the 3D and working in the team. But I didn't make it, so that I made that, so I connected the two. That was part of a different assignment. And I just gave them again, I set it up. I suppose I've never really thought about it as scaffolding, but today I am. I set up a 30-page journal with lots of images and concepts and ideas in it, and very specific tasks on pages. You know, now I need you to write about this, and I need this many references. Again, that issue of enabling constraints. You know, here are the boundaries. Anything you like inside that. Don't go outside it. And yes, many of them wrote about the importance of the working with the groups and then getting the whole project together. Because I gave them a focus. They had to do a group in the journal. They had to set up and demonstrate to me that they had a group, like a document that was to be their guidance for their group behavior, how they would work, you know, what their profiles were, what they thought the barriers might be for them to work together. So all of that's in the journal, and then the outcome was over here. We're nearly close to time. Any other questions or comments? Have I prompted you to try using some graphics? When I start, I have 3 comments that I always make to the students. The first one is, there are no prizes for artwork. The second one is, you are looking at the worst artist in the world, because they're all looking at me. So that sort of takes the heat off them a lot. And then the third one is, you must have fun. You know, that's sort of kind of the 3, that's how I lead in. And I've found that takes the heat and the fear out of it. I do have, and I can share with you, happy to share with you, criteria for assessment for their 3D image. I didn't have criteria for the art gallery, that last page, like criteria for success on the last slide in the for the art gallery team. Those were the criteria, and if they met all those, then the whole class as a whole got the mark for that part of the work. So they met all that criteria. But for the 3D, I have a separate rubric that says, you know, I can give you these many marks if you've done this, these many if you've done this. So they have a very clear indication of what's required. And then I give them feedback on the written document based on how well they went with the criteria. So I do a cut and paste. You did this part, this for the artwork, this for the written work, you know, this for the use of metaphor, this for the referencing and so on. So when I think about it for myself, I'm actually seeing that I have highly structured and scaffolded everything, but that it leaves it really open for the students, and it generates a huge amount of. I know there were so many offline discussions that I didn't hear about. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? So that a task like that generates conversation behind the scenes, and I don't need to know about it. But what I'm always happy to hear is that those conversations are then upping the ante with regard to creativity and engagement and fun and so on. So that's it. Any other questions? I do hope you go and use some artwork. I find that it's, as I said, my 2 sisters are fabulous craftspeople. One is doing hand-carved block printing on silk. The other one's doing fabric, large-scale fabric art pieces. They're just way into arts and crafts. It's beautiful what they're doing. I can't hold a needle without dropping it. So that's not where my line is, but I love generating in other students that capacity to see how creative they can be.